Recognizing self-limiting beliefs is an essential step in personal growth and overcoming the invisible barriers we often place in our own paths. These beliefs are internalized notions that shape our thoughts, behaviors, and expectations about ourselves, often holding us back from realizing our full potential. They may stem from past experiences, societal conditioning, or even well-meaning advice from others that, over time, has caused us to doubt our own capabilities. At the core, self-limiting beliefs are a defense mechanism. Our minds create these beliefs to protect us from perceived failure or rejection. For example, if someone was ridiculed for a particular mistake during childhood, they may develop the belief that they are not smart enough to avoid repeating it. As a result, this belief can discourage them from pursuing opportunities where they might excel, like taking on a new project, pursuing higher education, or voicing their ideas in a meeting. Instead, the person stays within the comfort zone of what they know they are capable of, avoiding any situation that could potentially affirm their underlying fear. In the short term, this strategy may protect them from feeling embarrassed or vulnerable, but over time, it becomes a major obstacle to self-improvement and fulfillment. One of the main challenges of recognizing self-limiting beliefs is that they are often so ingrained in our minds that we accept them as facts rather than opinions or distorted perceptions. We all have narratives about ourselves, stories that we've internalized based on experiences, relationships, or cultural messages that frame how we see ourselves in the world. These stories might be based on specific incidents, like failing a test or receiving criticism from a family member, or they could be generalized from years of subtle conditioning. For example, someone might believe that they are not creative because they grew up in an environment where practical skills were valued over artistic pursuits. This belief, once internalized, becomes a lens through which they view their talents, causing them to shy away from creative tasks or artistic exploration, even if they have a latent talent or interest in it. It's important to note that self-limiting beliefs are not always easy to recognize because they are often hidden beneath layers of rationalizations. We might tell ourselves things like, "I'm just not the type of person who is good at public speaking," or "I'm too old to start learning something new." These statements may seem innocuous or realistic, but they often mask deeper fears of failure, of being judged, or of not meeting our own or others' expectations. Rationalizations give us a convenient excuse to stay within our comfort zones, but they also prevent us from pushing our boundaries and realizing our true capabilities. To begin identifying self-limiting beliefs, one helpful approach is to pay attention to areas of your life where you feel stuck, unfulfilled, or frustrated. These feelings are often signals that a self-limiting belief might be at play. For example, if you want to pursue a different career path but feel paralyzed by the thought of change, it may be that you hold a belief like, "I'm not capable of adapting to something new," or "I've invested too much time in my current field to make a change." By questioning these thoughts and examining where they come from, you can start to uncover the self-limiting beliefs that are holding you back. Another effective method is to notice your reactions when you encounter new challenges or opportunities. If your immediate response is, "I can't do this," or "I'm not ready for this," take a moment to pause and reflect. Ask yourself why you feel this way. Are there specific experiences that made you believe you couldn't succeed in similar situations? Are you fearing an outcome based on a single past experience or an isolated failure? By examining the root of these beliefs, you can start to see them as opinions rather than absolute truths, and you can begin to challenge them with new evidence from your current reality. Once you start recognizing these beliefs, the next step is to reframe them. This doesn't mean pretending you don't have any limitations or ignoring your fears. Instead, it's about adopting a more balanced and constructive perspective. For instance, if you've always believed you're bad with numbers, reframe this as, "I haven't developed my skills with numbers yet, but I can improve with practice." This shift in language opens the door to possibility, emphasizing growth rather than reinforcing a fixed, limiting belief. Challenging self-limiting beliefs also involves taking small steps outside of your comfort zone. As you push these boundaries, you'll begin to gather new evidence that contradicts old beliefs. Each small success, whether it's speaking up in a meeting, trying a new skill, or simply doing something you once thought was not for you, begins to weaken the power of the limiting belief. Over time, these small wins accumulate, reshaping your self-perception and building a stronger foundation of self-confidence. Breaking free from self-limiting beliefs is not a one-time task, it's a continuous process of self-reflection and intentional action. As you move forward, new beliefs may emerge or old ones may resurface in different contexts. But by building awareness and actively challenging these beliefs, you'll be better equipped to handle them without letting them dictate your choices. Ultimately, recognizing self-limiting beliefs is about reclaiming your agency. It's about moving from a mindset where you are at the mercy of your past experiences and fears to one where you have the power to define your potential. By acknowledging these beliefs, examining their roots, and gradually shifting your perspective, you can transform self-imposed barriers into stepping stones, allowing you to pursue your goals and live with greater authenticity and freedom. Reframing negative self-talk is a powerful and transformative practice that can significantly improve our self-esteem, resilience, and overall well-being. Negative self-talk is the inner dialogue that often echoes doubts, criticisms, and self-judgments. It might come up as a small voice saying things like, "You're not good enough, you'll never succeed," or "You always mess things up." While it might feel like this voice is just trying to protect us from disappointment or failure, in reality, it often holds us back, chips away at our confidence, and prevents us from realizing our potential. The first step in reframing negative self-talk is to recognize that it exists and to understand that it's a natural, though unhelpful, part of human thinking. Many of these critical thoughts arise from past experiences, our upbringing, or societal pressures. For example, if you were constantly reminded to be realistic or not aim too high, it might have left you with a residual voice that dampens your ambitions. Sometimes our negative self-talk reflects the fear of judgment from others or past experiences where we felt inadequate or were criticized. Because of this, our minds learn to anticipate failure or disappointment, and they prepare for it by keeping our expectations low and trying to avoid risks. But while this mechanism may have developed to shield us from pain or rejection, it does more harm than good. The problem with negative self-talk is that it can become self-fulfilling. If you constantly tell yourself, "I'm not good at this," you're less likely to put in the effort needed to improve, and thus you may indeed continue to struggle in that area. Over time, the belief that you're not good enough or not smart enough becomes ingrained, making it even harder to break free from this negative cycle. This is why reframing negative self-talk is so crucial. It allows you to challenge and change these limiting beliefs, transforming them into thoughts that support growth and self-compassion. To reframe negative self-talk, the first thing to do is catch yourself in the act. When you notice a negative thought, stop and label it as such. For instance, if you find yourself thinking, "I'm terrible at this," try to step back and identify it as negative self-talk. This process of acknowledging the thought can be incredibly powerful because it creates a mental distance between you and the thought itself. Instead of identifying with it, "I am terrible," you start to see it as a passing thought. "I'm having a thought that I'm terrible at this." This small change in language can weaken the hold of the negative thought, giving you the mental space needed to evaluate its validity. After identifying the negative self-talk, it's important to challenge its accuracy. Often, our minds jump to the worst conclusions without examining the evidence. For example, if you think, "I always fail," ask yourself, is this really true? Do I always fail, or am I only remembering specific instances? It's likely that, when examined closely, the thought is exaggerated or overly harsh. By questioning these statements, you start to realize that they're not absolute truths, but rather distorted perceptions that don't accurately reflect reality. Once you've recognized and questioned the negative thought, try reframing it in a more constructive way. For instance, instead of saying, "I always fail," you could say, "I didn't succeed this time, but I've succeeded in other areas, and I can try again." This reframing doesn't ignore the fact that you may have experienced setbacks, but it places those setbacks in a broader, more balanced perspective. The goal of reframing is not to replace every negative thought with a positive one unrealistically. It's about finding a middle ground that acknowledges challenges while encouraging growth. In addition to reframing, adopting a more compassionate tone toward yourself can have a profound impact on how you deal with setbacks and challenges. Imagine speaking to yourself the way you would speak to a close friend who is facing a similar situation. For example, if your friend came to you saying, "I'll never get this right," you probably wouldn't agree with them or criticize them further. Instead, you might offer words of encouragement, reminding them of their past successes and strengths. Applying this kind of compassion to your own self-talk can help you build a kinder, more supportive inner dialogue. Over time, practicing this reframing process can transform your self-image and increase your resilience. Replacing negative self-talk with balanced and constructive thoughts helps to rewire your brain for positivity. Studies have shown that repetitive patterns of thought can shape our neural pathways, meaning that the more you practice reframing your negative self-talk, the easier it becomes to adopt a positive perspective. Eventually, the habit of challenging and reframing negativity turns into a natural response rather than a conscious effort, making it easier to approach life's challenges with confidence and a growth-oriented mindset. Another practical tool for reframing negative self-talk is to use affirmations or positive self-statements. For instance, if you frequently feel anxious about public speaking and tend to tell yourself, "I'm terrible at speaking in front of others," you might develop an affirmation like, "I'm growing more comfortable and confident speaking in front of people," even if it doesn't feel true initially. Consistent use of affirmations can gradually shift your mindset and make you more open to improvement. Reframing negative self-talk is not a quick fix, it's a continuous journey. There may be times when negative thoughts slip through, and that's okay. The goal isn't perfection, but progress. Each time you catch a negative thought and reframe it, you're strengthening your ability to face challenges with a healthier mindset. Over time, you'll find that your inner dialogue becomes more constructive, less critical, and more aligned with the truth of your potential. Ultimately, reframing negative self-talk empowers you to take control of your inner narrative. Instead of being limited by your fears and past conditioning, you can start to cultivate thoughts that encourage self-belief and growth. This shift doesn't just change the way you feel, it transforms what you believe you're capable of achieving, creating a foundation for lasting self-confidence and resilience. Cultivating self-compassion is a transformative practice that involves treating yourself with kindness, understanding, and acceptance, especially during times of failure or difficulty. In our society, self-compassion can often be overlooked in favor of high achievement and self-criticism. We're encouraged to push ourselves, set high standards, and focus on results, which can sometimes lead to harsh self-judgment when we inevitably fall short. Self-compassion, however, offers a gentle yet powerful alternative, allowing us to approach ourselves as a supportive friend rather than a relentless critic. At its core, self-compassion means embracing our imperfections and recognizing that mistakes and setbacks are part of the human experience. Instead of punishing ourselves for not being perfect, self-compassion encourages us to accept our shortcomings without judgment and to treat ourselves with the same understanding we would extend to a friend. This shift in perspective not only fosters resilience and emotional well-being, but also strengthens our ability to handle life's challenges with grace and confidence. One of the first steps in cultivating self-compassion is to recognize when we are being overly self-critical. Many of us engage in self-criticism almost automatically, often without even realizing it. When we make a mistake or encounter a setback, our minds might jump to harsh judgments like, "I'm not good enough," or "I always mess things up." This inner critic can be relentless, magnifying our flaws and minimizing our strengths. Recognizing these critical thoughts is the first step in shifting toward a more compassionate mindset. When you catch yourself being self-critical, pause and take a step back. This moment of awareness creates space to choose a different response. One way to start practicing self-compassion is by challenging these critical thoughts and replacing them with more balanced and forgiving perspectives. If you find yourself thinking, "I failed, so I must be a failure," try reframing this thought with self-compassion. "I'm disappointed that I didn't succeed, but this doesn't define my worth as a person." This approach doesn't ignore the mistake or gloss over it. Rather, it acknowledges your feelings while separating the specific outcome from your broader sense of self-worth. Over time, this practice helps to build resilience and a more balanced self-view, allowing you to learn from setbacks without getting overwhelmed by them. Self-compassion also involves recognizing our shared humanity and understanding that everyone experiences struggles, failures, and insecurities. Often, when we make a mistake or fall short of our expectations, we feel isolated, as if we're the only ones facing such challenges. This sense of isolation can intensify feelings of inadequacy or shame, making it even harder to recover from setbacks. However, self-compassion reminds us that imperfection is a universal part of being human. Everyone faces difficulties, everyone makes mistakes, and everyone has moments of self-doubt. By recognizing our shared humanity, we can approach our struggles with a sense of belonging and connection, which lessens the sting of failure and reduces feelings of isolation. Another essential aspect of cultivating self-compassion is practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness involves being present with our thoughts and emotions without getting swept away by them. When we encounter negative feelings or self-critical thoughts, it's easy to become overwhelmed or to try to suppress those feelings altogether. However, mindfulness encourages us to acknowledge these feelings without judgment. By observing our emotions rather than reacting to them, we create a space where self-compassion can flourish. For example, if you feel disappointed in yourself after a difficult conversation or project, mindfulness allows you to sit with that disappointment without immediately labeling yourself as inadequate. This non-judgmental awareness creates a foundation for self-compassion, allowing you to respond to your emotions with understanding rather than criticism. Developing self-compassion also means recognizing and letting go of the unrealistic standards that we sometimes impose on ourselves. Many people hold themselves to exceptionally high standards, expecting perfection in their work, relationships, or personal lives. While it's natural to strive for improvement, these rigid expectations can lead to chronic self-criticism when we inevitably fall short. Self-compassion invites us to set realistic and flexible standards for ourselves, acknowledging that growth is a process and that we are allowed to make mistakes along the way. By letting go of the need for perfection, we create space for genuine progress and personal development, free from the fear of constant self-judgment. Another helpful practice in cultivating self-compassion is engaging in positive self-talk. Just as we might encourage and uplift a friend who is going through a difficult time, we can speak to ourselves in ways that are supportive and affirming. When you encounter a setback or feel overwhelmed, try talking to yourself as you would to someone you care about. Phrases like "I'm doing the best I can," "It's okay to feel disappointed," or "I am enough," even if things didn't go as planned, can help reinforce a compassionate mindset. Over time, this supportive inner dialogue can replace the critical voice and help you feel more at ease with yourself. Self-compassion is not just about being kind to ourselves in times of failure. It also involves celebrating our successes and appreciating our unique qualities. Often people find it easier to focus on their weaknesses rather than their strengths, constantly striving for improvement without taking time to acknowledge their accomplishments. Self-compassion encourages us to celebrate our efforts, however small, and to recognize the progress we've made. This appreciation helps to build a positive self-image and reinforces the idea that we are worthy of kindness, regardless of our successes or failures. In addition to benefiting mental and emotional health, self-compassion has been shown to enhance resilience and motivation. Contrary to the belief that self-compassion leads to complacency, research suggests that people who are compassionate toward themselves are more likely to persevere in the face of challenges. When we treat ourselves kindly, we create a supportive environment where we feel safe to take risks, try new things, and grow. Self-compassion provides a stable foundation of self-worth that isn't dependent on external achievements, allowing us to pursue our goals with greater resilience and confidence. Cultivating self-compassion is an ongoing journey, not a one-time achievement. There will be times when the inner critic resurfaces, and moments when it feels difficult to extend kindness to yourself. But with practice, self-compassion becomes an integral part of your mindset, allowing you to face life's challenges with courage and self-acceptance. Ultimately, self-compassion empowers you to build a relationship with yourself based on understanding, forgiveness, and respect. By treating yourself with compassion, you create a foundation for authentic happiness and resilience, leading to a more fulfilling and balanced life. Focusing on personal growth instead of perfection is a transformative approach to self-development that embraces progress and learning rather than the elusive and often paralyzing pursuit of flawlessness. In a society that frequently values achievement, precision, and high standards, the idea of perfection is often promoted as an ideal. Whether it's in academics, career, relationships, or personal appearance, there's often an unspoken expectation to perform without error. However, the drive for perfection, while initially motivating, can ultimately become a burden, making us anxious, self-critical, and sometimes even fearful of taking risks. Shifting our focus from achieving perfection to fostering personal growth is a liberating choice that allows us to celebrate incremental improvements, learn from mistakes, and build resilience. One of the main issues with striving for perfection is that it sets an unattainable standard, one that is often defined by unrealistic expectations or external pressures. Perfection is a moving target, often rooted in the subjective opinions of others or societal standards that can be impossible to meet. When we place too much emphasis on perfection, we become trapped in a cycle of disappointment and frustration, because no matter how hard we work, there will always be areas in which we fall short. This mindset often leads to self-doubt, causing us to be overly critical of ourselves when we inevitably make mistakes. As a result, perfectionism can stifle growth, creativity, and motivation. Rather than encouraging us to move forward, it causes us to fear failure and resist new challenges where we might not excel immediately. By shifting the focus to personal growth, we allow ourselves to embrace a more flexible and compassionate approach to development. Personal growth emphasizes continuous improvement and self-awareness rather than reaching a fixed standard. It is a journey, not a destination, and it doesn't require us to be flawless. When we adopt a growth-oriented mindset, we begin to see mistakes as valuable learning opportunities instead of setbacks. Each mistake or shortcoming becomes a stepping stone that adds to our experience and understanding, helping us to improve and become more capable over time. This shift in perspective allows us to view challenges as a part of our progress rather than obstacles to perfection. A growth mindset also encourages resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks and adapt to new situations. Resilience is often strengthened by experiences of failure and difficulty, as each challenge we face teaches us something new about our abilities and how we handle adversity. Perfectionism, on the other hand, tends to make us risk-averse, as the fear of failing can prevent us from trying new things altogether. By focusing on growth, we create a safe space for ourselves to experiment and take risks, knowing that mistakes are not a reflection of our worth but rather part of the process of learning and improvement. Over time, this resilience makes us more adaptable and better equipped to handle the unpredictable nature of life. Another benefit of focusing on personal growth rather than perfection is that it fosters a healthier and more positive self-image. When we strive for perfection, we often measure our value by our achievements or by meeting certain standards. This approach creates a conditional self-worth, where we feel good about ourselves only when we perform well and achieve our goals. In contrast, a growth-oriented mindset promotes a stable sense of self-worth that isn't dependent on external validation or flawless performance. By valuing our efforts, perseverance, and willingness to learn, we develop a sense of self-acceptance that doesn't waver with each success or failure. This more grounded self-image allows us to celebrate our strengths while also acknowledging our areas for improvement, without feeling diminished by our imperfections. Emphasizing growth over perfection also has significant benefits for our mental and emotional well-being. Studies have shown that people with perfectionist tendencies often experience higher levels of stress, anxiety, and depression, largely due to the relentless self-criticism that perfectionism entails. The pressure to meet impossible standards can be exhausting, leading to burnout and diminishing our overall sense of fulfillment. By focusing on growth, we release ourselves from this pressure and adopt a more forgiving attitude. We recognize that it's normal to face challenges, make mistakes, and experience setbacks along the way. This acceptance allows us to maintain a healthier balance in life, as we are no longer driven by the need to prove ourselves constantly. Instead, we focus on enjoying the journey, appreciating our progress, and finding meaning in our experiences. When we prioritize personal growth, we also cultivate a mindset that values lifelong learning. Growth-oriented individuals understand that there is always room to learn, regardless of their current skill level or knowledge base. They are open to feedback and eager to improve, viewing each experience as an opportunity for development. This mindset keeps us engaged, curious, and motivated, as we see each day as a chance to expand our skills and perspectives. In contrast, perfectionism often creates a fixed mindset, where we feel that our abilities are set and that any failure is a sign of inadequacy. This rigidity can limit our potential and make us resistant to change, as we become more concerned with protecting our image than exploring new possibilities. Furthermore, focusing on personal growth instead of perfection can enhance our relationships with others. Perfectionism often leads to a sense of competitiveness as we compare ourselves to others and feel pressured to measure up. This can create feelings of envy, resentment, or isolation, as we perceive others as threats to our self-worth. A growth mindset, however, encourages collaboration and support, as we understand that everyone is on their own journey and that each person's progress is unique. By focusing on our own growth, we can celebrate the success of others without feeling diminished ourselves. This fosters a sense of community, empathy, and mutual respect, allowing us to build more meaningful and supportive relationships. Ultimately, choosing growth over perfection allows us to live a life of greater freedom, purpose, and fulfillment. It liberates us from the fear of making mistakes, enabling us to pursue our passions and dreams with confidence and courage. We begin to view life as a continuous journey of self-discovery, where each experience contributes to our development and understanding. By embracing growth, we align ourselves with a mindset that encourages us to keep moving forward, regardless of obstacles or setbacks. We find joy in the process of learning, appreciate the small victories along the way, and approach each new challenge with curiosity and openness. In this way, focusing on personal growth over perfection leads to a richer, more resilient, and ultimately more fulfilling life.